All right, so this is the last day in section 2.3, finishing up our factoring quadratics. Two learning targets for today. The first learning target is I can relate factors to zeros of a function. And these zeros of the function are also the x-intercepts of the graph. All right, so I can relate factors of zeros of a function. Okay, so let's look at this first example. Here is our equation we're given, x squared plus 2x minus 8. And we're gonna find the zeros. So we're gonna find where the graph crosses the x-axis. So the first thing we want to do is set our equation equal to 0. Because we're trying to solve for x here. Remember, we did this yesterday as well. So 0 equals x squared plus 2x minus 8. All right, now we're ready to factor. So this is a trinomial where a is 1. So in this form, we're going to pull the c to the side, the negative 8. And we're going to list all the factors of negative 8. And then we're going to find the one that adds to positive 2. So which of these factors adds to positive 2? That would be right here, negative 2 times 4. Then I take the square root of the a term, so that's x and x, and then fill in my factors that I circled up there. All right, just like yesterday, now we can set each of these factors equal to 0. Set each factor equal to 0. So x minus 2 equals 0. And x plus 4 equals 0. And then solve for x. So add 2 to both sides here. So x equals 2. Subtract 4 to both sides here. X equals negative 4. All right, now that we have solved for x, this tells us our zeros. So the zeros, which are also our x-intercepts, are 2 and negative 4. All right, now we can plot our zeros, or our x-intercepts, on the graph. So I have a 0 at 2 and negative 4 here. So 1 at 2, negative 4. Okay, now if I want to finish just a sketch of the graph, I need to determine if my graph is going to open up or down. And the way I do that is I look at the value of a. So I'm going to go back up here. So standard form is ax squared plus bx plus c. So the a is the number in front of x squared. So this 1 here. So if this a is positive, the graph is going to open up. And if it's negative, it's going to open down. So if a is positive, then the graph opens up. And if a is negative, then it opens down. And remember, our little trick we did. So positive happy face, negative frowny face. So in our case, our A is a positive 1. So that means our graph is going to open up. And it's going to look something like that. Okay, pause the video, try B. Try B on your own. All right, let's see how you did. So step 1, set it equal to 0. Now you're ready to factor. This is a trinomial where A is 1, so I'll pull the C term, the 20, to the side. And I'm looking for the factors that add to negative 9. And those happen to be negative 4 times negative 5, because negative 4 times negative 5 is positive 20. But if you add them, you get negative 9. So that's x minus 4, x minus 5. Now that it's factored, we can set each factor equal to 0 and solve for x. So I find that x is 4 and 5. So now I can go ahead and plot my zeros. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So at 4 and 5. Then I'm going to see if this graph is opening up or down. So I'll look at my A term. A is positive. So it opens up. All right, so let's take this a step further. So we're going to use this whole process, but we're just going to add one more thing to it. We're going to find positive and negative intervals. All right, so looking at the worksheet attached to the lesson here, we're going to do our second and final learning target here. I can determine positive and negative intervals using factored form. All right. Okay. So let's get started here. All right, so first we need to find the zeros. So that's what we just learned how to do. How do we do that? Well, we set it equal to 0 first. Set equation equal to 0. And then we factor it. So factors of negative 8 that add to negative 2, that would be negative 4 times positive 2. Now we're going to set each factor equal to 0. So x minus 4 equals 0, and x plus 2 equals 0. And then we'll solve for x. So x is positive 4, and x is negative 2. So now I have my zeros, 4 and negative 2. Now that I have my zeros, I can plot them. So 4 and negative 2 are plotted on the graph. Okay, now I need to figure out if my graph is going to open up or down. So I'm going to determine if graph opens up or down. So remember our trick, positive A opens up, negative A opens down. So in my problem here, A is positive, so it's going to open up. And we're not going to worry about domain and range. You can cross that out. So we'll just put that here. It opens up, so I can sketch my graph. We're not worried about the vertex so much. We just want a rough sketch of the graph. So we'll sketch that out there. And now, so this is all what we just learned. Now we're going to add one more step here. So what do? We just sketch graph. Okay. So taking it just one step further, and now we're going to find positive and negative intervals. So I want to highlight my positive and negative intervals. So my positive intervals are the part of the graph that's above the x-axis. So here and here. My negative intervals are the part of the graph that's below the x-axis. So that piece right there. Okay. Now I'm going to draw my arrows to show direction of the interval. So this interval is going this way towards negative infinity. And this interval is going this way towards positive infinity. And this interval is going to the right here and then switching direction and going to the left here. So draw arrows to show direction. Okay, and then finally we're ready to write our inequalities. So last step, write the inequalities. Okay, so let's start with the positive. So the positive intervals are above the x-axis. So anything above the x-axis here, and I highlighted them in yellow. So this one is starting at -2, and then it's going towards negative infinity. So that means it's getting smaller. My x values are getting smaller. So I show that by saying x is less than -2. And then over here, starting at 4, my x values are getting bigger because it's going towards positive infinity. So that's x greater than 4. So my positive intervals are x less than -2 or x greater than 4. Now let's look at our negative interval. So negative is anything below the x-axis, so what I highlighted in pink here. And it's going from -2 to +4. So it's all the x values from -2 to +4. And you show that by saying -2 less than x less than 4. All right, pause the video and try number 2. All right, let's check number 2 here. So first we're going to set our equation equal to 0. And then we're going to factor it. Looking for the factors of 5 that add to 6, so that would be 1 and 5, 1 times 5. Set each factor equal to 0 and solve. So x is -1 and x is -5. So that tells me my zeros are -1 and -5. So I'll go ahead and plot those. So -1 and -5. And then I'm going to determine if my graph opens up or down. So I'm looking at my A value. My A value is positive, so it's going to open up. Sketch it. Now I'm ready to find my intervals. So positive is anything above the x-axis, and negative is anything below the x-axis. So this positive interval here, starting at -5, and it's going towards -infinity, so that means it's getting smaller. So x is less than -5. And then over here, my interval starts at -1 and it's going towards positive infinity, so that means x is getting bigger. So x is greater than -1. So x is less than -5 or x is greater than -1. Now I'm going to do my negative intervals. So this is my negative piece down here. Below the x-axis is negative. And it's all the values from -5 to -1. So x is in between -5 and -1. All right, so now you're ready to complete the worksheet. So finish up this worksheet and submit it.